Hey everyone, and welcome to another Kirby video. In today's video I want to use the Kirby command line interface to create a command to import data into Kirby. And this serves as an example for pretty much any kind of data that you want to import from a database, from a JSON file or some JSON API as we are doing it today, or an Excel sheet or a CSV or anything else. So it's really just about getting stuff into Kirby, creating pages out of external data. So let's get started. One requirement for today, obviously, is to have the Kirby command line interface installed and get it up and running. I won't go into the details of how the installations work exactly, but you can get it from our plugins directory. And if you click on the docs here, you will get the instructions how to install it via Composer. It's not super hard, just follow along the instructions here, and then you should be ready to go. If you need help with that, please find us in the forum or find us on Discord, and we try to get you up and running. So once you have this up and running, you can open your terminal and you should be able to run Kirby like this. And the Kirby command line interface will give you a couple of built-in commands that you can see here. And there is already a bunch of really useful stuff in there. So you can use it to install any kind of kits that we provide. You can use it to install just the Kirby folder. You can upgrade your installation. You can build certain kinds of boilerplate templates for commands, for controllers, for models, for any kind of things that you want to start building. You can install plugins, as you see here. So it's really useful, a really useful tool out of the box. But the cool part is that you can also use it to create your own commands for your sites. And this is something that I want to show you today. So let's get started. I want to open this demo folder here and install a new kit, a new Plainkit. So we are going to do it like this, install kit. And if I don't add any additional argument, it will ask me what kind of kit I want to install. So I want to install the Plainkit, and I can specify which folder I want to install it in, and I want to call it import. So now I have a fresh installation of Kirby running in my import folder here, and I'm going to drag that into VS Code, and now I'm pretty much ready to go. And now I can create my own commands. One thing in VS Code which is super cool is that they have this built-in terminal right here, so I can use this instead of the terminal that I just did. And of course Kirby is also available here, so the same thing. I can see all the lists. I can see the list of built-in commands. And as you've seen before already, there is a make command thing, which we are going to use to create our own first command. This command is focusing on importing data. So obviously I want to have something like import from Mastodon, or I just use import. This will define the name of the command. And as you can see, it will install the command in our site folder. If I expand this, it has created a new commands subfolder, and inside the commands subfolder there's now an import.php. And if I open that up, I have a bit of boilerplate code for my command. So it is a simple array which can have a description of the command, which helps if you run the help. If you run help for this, you can get help for this command. Oh my god, where is this going? So this would be the first point, to provide a bit of information, import data from Mastodon. And then we can have additional arguments, or we can require additional arguments for this command to run. As you've seen before, I have run the install kit command without any arguments, and then it gave me a couple options. I could have also added Plainkit as the first argument to install the Plainkit, or starter kit as the first argument to install the starter kit, and this is something that we could also do here. We don't need it for our import command, so I'm not going to go into the details here. If you want to learn more about the things that you can do with arguments, you can find the docs for this also in the README of our plugin. And I might make a video about it, about some extended options later. But I really want to make this a combination of how to create commands and how to import stuff into Kirby. So we are going to focus on the command function here. The command function gets a first argument, which is our CLI object or our CLI instance. And the CLI instance has a couple things that we can do with it. So one thing that you're already seeing here is the success message. So we can print a simple success command or some success message to our terminal. How does this look like, or what happens if I run this command now, or how do I even run this command? That would be probably the even more important question. We can simply now do this by running Kirby import. And as you see, this is what it does. This is what success does. It puts that text that we put in here into a nice green box. We can also turn this into an error. Then it would look like this. Or we can simply echo stuff, and then it would be just white text on a black background. It depends on your terminal theme, of course, but most of the times it will look something like this. So we leave the success message in here and we just pretend that our command is already working and everything has been running fine, and we end up at that success command. This is mostly like commands end at some point. Nice. Okay, so here this is a clean slate or clean canvas for whatever we want to build now, and it could be pretty much anything. So we can import data and create pages out of that. We can update pages. We could do all kinds of things with Kirby. The first most important part is how do we access the Kirby instance. We could use the Kirby helper, that would work, and we can also use CLI Kirby to get to that. I'm saying CLI, this is pretty German. I would probably have to say CLI, I don't know. I stick to CLI, I hope you don't mind. So this is how we get to the Kirby instance. And then of course we can do all the things that we normally do with the Kirby instance. But let's talk a bit more about what I really intend to do here. This is the Mastodon JSON that I get for our Kirby timeline. So this is our Kirby Mastodon profile and the timeline that you're seeing here and the post that we're providing here. Why do I use Mastodon for this? Because it is super easy to get to your statuses and get JSON for this. You don't have to authenticate for that. You just have to find your account ID, which is also, again, pretty simple as it is described here. You basically use something like this here, which is also described in the API docs for Mastodon. And then you get the ID out of this, and then you can put this into this statuses request here. And that's pretty much it. And then you get a huge list of JSON objects for all the posts that you've posted. So it really just serves as a simple way to get example data for this demo here. As I said before, it could be anything else. So typical examples would be that you already have some kind of system, maybe some kind of content management system or a product database or anything else that you want to migrate to Kirby. And so you could make a database call with your favorite database class or with our built-in database class. Or you could just load a JSON file. You could just put that on the disk somewhere and then load it from there into PHP and parse that and be done with that. Or you could include some library to parse Excel sheets or to parse CSV files and then get an array of objects out of those. It does not really matter. Any kind of source of data could work for this example, and you can easily interchange it. This was just a very, very simple way to get started with, and we get some data that is not just lorem ipsum. Cool. So I want to fetch this and I want to turn this into pages. And the pages that I want to create should be located in posts. And then for every post in my timeline or in our timeline, I want to create a subfolder, post A, post B, etc. I'm not entirely decided yet what the folder name should be for each post. We have to look into that, but that's kind of the idea. And then I would put a post.txt here and a posts.txt here. That would basically be the architecture for those pages. And of course, we want to automate all of this. I don't want to do this manually, so I'm going to delete this. I will create the posts folder though, because otherwise we would also need to create this first via command line, and that is a bit unnecessary. If we create the posts folder first, this is a perfect starting point, and we can create child pages for it afterwards. So let's get back to our command, and I'm going to show you how to create pages with the built-in PHP API. So to get to our posts parent page, we can either use the page helper or we can do Kirby page, which is the same thing. So from here on, we have access to our posts page. That's the first step we need to do. And afterwards, we can use the create child method to create a new subpage for posts. And create child takes an argument, an array argument, with additional information about each child, about that child that we are going to create here. So the first and required argument that we have to provide is a slug. Slug is basically the folder name, or the folder name without the sorting number. The slug in this case for our first demo would be hello world. And this should be it. This should be the most simple way to create a subpage. If we can totally focus just on the folder name first and then provide additional information later. And it's a great way to start and just see if things work. So let's just try and see what happens. You are not allowed to create hello world, which makes sense because we are not authenticated yet. Let's a bit of security here to not just be able to create pages out of nowhere. So we have to tell Kirby which user is currently authenticated. We don't want to have a username and password authentication here, which would be a bit annoying in the command line interface, especially if we want to run this later as a cron job, for example. I don't know, maybe this could be coming in regularly. If we want to fetch data, regularly whenever new posts arrive or something like that. So authentication is pretty easy to handle. Again, starting from our Kirby instance, we can use the impersonate method. And the impersonate method can either take one of the existing accounts. So if you already have an account, you can go into your sites folder, your site folder, and into accounts. We don't have an account yet. If I would create one, it would have would look like something like this. So it would have a unique random ID here for the user, and we could copy this ID and paste it in here, and then this user would be authenticated. It's as easy as that. We can also, if we don't have a user, or if we want to have like super user privileges, we can use the Kirby super user. We don't have a root super user, we have the Kirby super user, and this will now give us all the permissions that we need to create a page. Please be very careful with the impersonate method, because as I just said, it gives you super user rights in this case. So with this, you can now create pages, you can delete pages, you can update content or delete content. So it's quite risky, and it's especially risky if you use this in a scenario where you provide a public access to it, basically. So if you put this into a controller, if you have this in a form environment where a form is being submitted, please always be super, super careful with such stuff. Updating pages, deleting pages, etc. Make sure that you know what you're doing, and make sure that you are not exposing critical methods and features to the public via browser. We are here in the command line environment, so it is protected as long as your server is protected. Well, if someone can log into your server, it's no longer protected there either. But we are on a local machine anyway, so in most of the cases, if you're working on such import of data for your installation, it will probably end up being a one-time job. You import your data from the database once, and then you're done, and then you can move on from there. And most of the times, actually, whenever I build such stuff, I mostly throw the import scripts away afterwards because, yeah, I might never need it afterwards. So that would be the most secure version, of course, that this command does not even exist. But as I said before, if your server is fine, you should be fine here as well in your command line environment. Okay, now we have authenticated. We should be able to create this subpage, and let's just try it again. Yay, Mastodon data imported. What does it look like? Let's go back to a content folder, to posts. So Kirby has created a drafts subfolder, and it has created our new Hello World folder, and inside it has created a default.txt with a UID and with a text field. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let's just have a look at this first. This is Kirby's default behavior. So whenever you create a new page, it will always be created as a draft first, just as an additional bit of safety here to make sure that you don't create any kind of pages that are incomplete and that would render like weirdly in your templates. This is not ideal for our command line interface environment because we might really just want to create a bunch of listed pages here. We have all the data from our database, from our JSON file, so it is not really necessary. It could be useful if you feel like, okay, I'm importing it first and then I hand over the review process to someone else and they go into the panel and they review all those drafts and they publish them manually. That would be totally an option. But in this case, I would prefer to actually not create them as drafts. As I said before, this is also putting in a text field here, which is kind of weird. Why does it do that? Because our Plainkit has a default blueprint with a text field. And so it basically goes in there and has a look at the text field, and it would create then the text field. So your blueprint serves as the schema for this new page, and it will then apply this. And there is no text, so it will be an empty text field. This is just an explanation. We can easily fix this in a second. Okay, so we have two things to fix. First, I really don't want to have this as a drafts in a draft subfolder, and I also don't want to have this as a default.txt. I want to use post.txt here. Fortunately, both things are super easy to fix. Back to our command, we can add a few more arguments here. So the first one would be draft. Nope. Don't create this as a draft. And the second one would be as a template, please use the post template. So let's give it another try. I'm going to delete this and rerun it and have a look at it. And it is exactly doing what I want. It is creating a Hello World folder without putting it into a drafts folder, and it is using posts. It is still using the default blueprint because there is no other blueprint, so it will still apply the text field, but that's still fine. We can deal with it in a second. Awesome. This should already give you lots of ideas how to use this, because now we have tons of options to create pages from the command line, which is already pretty nice. If I want to provide additional content for my text file, I can do this now with the content option. And the content option is just an argument of fields. So I could say, put in some title, hello world. And now I can, for example, override this text thingy here and say, yay. And let's just have another look at it. I'm always deleting stuff first, as you might have noticed. And let's just don't do it. Let's just rerun it again and see what happens. And this is exactly why I've deleted stuff first, because this already exists. And this is now not what I want. I want to create this and not running into another error here. So always delete stuff first, try again. There's actually really no harm in doing this. As long as your script can rerun and rerun over and over again, you can experiment with this for as long as you like. And this is something that I personally really enjoy, because it is such a playful way to do this. Just step by step approach this, play around with the different options, see if they bring you the results that you're looking for. Okay, what have we got now? Still our post.txt, and here we have our fields, our title field, our text field. And as you can see, this is really nice because Kirby is turning our array into the content fields for us. We don't have to worry about creating the right syntax somehow. We can just pass in the fields, the field names, and it would then put in the right stuff into the content file. Awesome. At this point, we are ready to pull in some real data and turn that real data into subpages. Let me clean this up again. And now we want to fetch the JSON from the Mastodon API. What we could do, as I said before, we could totally just read a file. We could pass something else somewhere, some Excel sheet, some XML, some JSON, some anything else. But I'm going to do a remote request and get that JSON from Mastodon. And we can use Kirby's built-in remote class, which is in the HTTP package, and it's just a really easy way to do remote requests. So we can do a GET request. We could also do POST requests or patch requests or whatever is needed. Well, that does not make sense to fetch resources, but you get the idea. And so I'm going to paste the URL in here. This added limit here is not really needed, but if you don't need added, well, we can mostly get 40 of those. It will only give you 20. If you add the limit to it, it will give you 40. But this is some specific stuff about the Mastodon API, which is not super interesting. It just means that if you wanted to get all your statuses, you would need to go through a loop and call the API multiple times and provide a starting ID, which would then move the cursor forward to get more and more posts. So we can only get the last 40 for this example. It's totally fine. The remote get method will return a response object, and that response object has a handy little helper to pass JSON. So we can do this to get passed JSON into an array. So I will do this, and this should give me a nice array that we can work with now. Let's use one of the other CLI options, or methods, which is the dump method. This is just a CLI version of the dump method that you probably used a couple times already to, well, obviously dump whatever is in that JSON response. So let's check if our remote call is working. Yes, it's working. It's giving us a huge array of things here that we can work with now. And this means that we can turn this into a simple for each loop. And each item in that JSON array should be a post. And for each of those posts, we will create a child. And that should be it. So now we need to, of course, somehow find out how to create individual folder names for each of those post sub pages. Let's have a look at the JSON in this here. In my opinion, if this would be a database request to an existing block system, for example, you would probably already have something that you could use as a slug, because most content management systems have something similar where you can add a slug for a post. Or if you have a title, you could easily turn that into a slug. We don't have anything useful for Mastodon posts because they don't have a title, they just have content. And turning the content into a slug, I don't really see an option here. It's not really unique. It could be anything in that content. doesn't really work. So I would, for this example, or for the sake of simplicity, I would really just use the ID here as our slug. It's not that beautiful, you will see that in a second, but it totally works. So we will use the post ID as slug. We will keep on creating listed, unlisted pages here and not create them as draft. All of this is great. Now we have to pull in the content somehow and put it in here. There is no title, as I said before. That is a thing of Mastodon posts. There's not really something useful to put in there. Well, you could say Mastodon post number whatever and use the ID again or something. I don't really see a sense in that. And then Mastodon is not using text for this. Mastodon is using content for this as a field, and I will put it into the text field though. I find this a bit nicer. Again, this is giving you full control over how you turn your existing data that is coming from this API endpoint now at this point into your content. So you could totally use this to also clean up the field names, clean up the content, maybe even pass the content here and do some additional stuff. I mean, this is just PHP. You can do anything in here in addition to what we are doing to clean up and just make your content nicer and while you are already importing it. Okay, I'm doing a few things to make this a bit more readable, and let's just give it another try and see what happens. Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. So data is imported. I have all those pages now. The IDs are the folder names. I have all the post.txt files in there, and all those post.txt files have the text field that I have specified. Oops, but this one is empty. This one is full. This one is empty. Well, I play surprised. I'm not really surprised because I've ran into this before while preparing this video. Mastodon is basically giving me a mixture of actual posts that I did, but also retweets or reposts as they are called in Mastodon. So some of them won't have a content field, or they will have a content field, but the content field is empty. Instead, they have a reblock subfield with all kinds of stuff in there for that post that has been reblocked. So that's super easy to fix. We can then just check if there's some content. And if there isn't, we will simply skip this and not create a page out of it. Delete it again, run it again, see what happens. Whoops, far less posts, far fewer posts, and they now are all providing some content. Nice, cool. Again, this is something that is so typical for those kind of commands. So you will probably run into a few issues a couple times while working with the source material. You have to check if there are any kind of exemptions, things that aren't prepared or aren't provided in a way that you expect them to be provided. So you probably have to run this a couple times, just see if the results are great. But step by step, you will end up at a point where you feel like, okay, this is now really getting somewhere. The page structure that I have now is really working. Maybe I have to put in a bit of manual work as well, but yeah, I'm totally happy with this. This is great. So now I have my list of posts. I could put more in there. Nice. So I can now focus on how to style this, how to create templates for it, how to create the panel setup for it, to create blueprints for it, etc. And I have my own little microblog, which is just fantastic. One other thing that I want to show you is that most of the times, if you're creating pages, you might also want to create some listed pages. Short recap, those are now all unlisted pages because they have no sorting number. They just have a slug. Even if the slug is a number, that does not really matter, but the format for a listed page would be something like 1 and an underscore and then the slug. that would be a listed page. This is an unlisted page. And that status is different in Kirby, as you might have seen in many other videos and also in all our examples. So in this case, I really want to turn all those pages into listed pages, and I want to use the date at which those posts have been created as the sorting number. So I want to have something like 2024, this is April 30th, and then this would be the underscore. So to make sure that the date is also referenced there, and whenever the IDs shouldn't be chronological, I would still have the date to sort by. And this would be, like really helpful to just have a good overview of these posts, especially if you have a blog, for example, with proper slugs. It is making your folders a lot more readable. But how do we do this? We can't provide a number here directly. We have to change the number after creating the subpage. So we are going to quickly temporarily store our newly created page in a new page object, and then afterwards we can do anything with it. We could instantly delete it again, which would be a bit stupid, but in this case we can now change the number. Just as a demo, we could totally change it to 0, for example, to put anything, to just make sure that they are listed but they are sorted by the ID, which would look like this. But as I said before, I want to use the created date. So each object in the Mastodon response provides a created at field, and we can easily parse this. This is a date which is easy to parse and put into parse into a timestamp and then format it from there. So I'm going to call this date, and that would be post created at. And now we need to parse it, which in PHP is done with string to time. This turns it into a timestamp. And then we can feed this into the date method. We can provide a format for it. So just year, month, date is perfect for this. And then as a second argument, we provide the timestamp that we've just created. Running this again. Whoops, we are ending up with listed pages that have the date, cursor is gone, have the date as the sorting number, which again, I think is just super handy, which will happen often because you will probably run into this a couple times. If you feel like you want to sort them by index, for example, you could totally also create a counter here, started something like counter 1, and then we use the counter here, and as soon as we are done, we count up. That would be another way to do this, not by date, but numerically. I hope this works. I haven't tried this before. Yeah, of course it works. So it's not super hard. It is all about the ideas that you have about how you want to create this. What do you want to achieve? How do you like your pages to be? So this entire tutorial is all about giving you ideas, it's giving you ideas what you could do with existing data, how you could turn this into pages. It is sometimes really just a fantastic way to play around with existing data and turn it into pages, even if you have like just a set of data that your client provides you with and you want to not manually go through all those pages. Sometimes it's really faster to create a command for it like that and then create those pages, parse some text file and go through some info about that, pass some DOM elements or whatever from a public website and turn this into pages. There are endless possibilities to do this, and this video has been quite important to me, or is important to me, because I feel like creating pages, importing stuff into Kirby is of course important if you want to move from a different system or if you just start fresh with existing data. But it's also the other way around. You can totally use this in the opposite way and export data like that. You could totally go through pages that exist already in your site and then turn them into JSON or turn them into a spreadsheet or turn them into anything else that you might want to export. You could run database queries for those pages and write pages to a database. Anything is really possible, and that's something that I feel like is part of our philosophy in Kirby for a long time, to make sure that all of this is still portable. We are a commercial system, and as such we often get asked like how locked are we in with this if we commit to it. And I feel like it should be always easy to get stuff in there, but also get it out there if you ever have to. Of course, we never want to see you leave, but yeah, sometimes this might happen. And then you should be confident that you can do something like this and create a little script and export your stuff and make your clients happy or make yourselves happy. I hope this helped. It was a bit more nerdy than the other parts, but I think it's a really essential part of Kirby that you are able to do this. One last bit of advice that I want to give you: if you want to look into other options or into other methods to work with pages, to work with site objects, to work with users, for example, in such commands, go to our docs and to the reference and go to those objects. So those are the most important objects in Kirby, and we list all the methods that you have available here. And of course you will also find the update method here, for example, or you find the delete method here. And all of this stuff is possible for all of those objects. So you can create files, you can create users, you can update users. All of this is possible through such commands, which I think is really, really cool. I hope you liked this video. See you next time. Bye bye.